Okay, welcome back, welcome back. It's the Dividend Dudes. We got Brian and Tom here, and I'm the anonymous dude behind the camera here. Hey, so we had a good question this week. Well, recently this came up as we were talking about videos that we'd like to make, and it was about what would you do if you had some extra money? And sometimes you gotta think of it in terms of, let's just put a number on it. So we put the number $1,000 on it. Let's say you have $1,000. So the question is, let's say you have that, what should you be doing with that $1,000?
Well, give it to me. I'm good at spending it.
Okay.
Pokemon cards? Is that what? No, we're not into Pokemon cards.
People still have those?
I think so.
Oh, heck yeah, they're way popular.
So $1,000. So we've got a couple steps here, and we went back and forth, talked about investments and everything that are surrounding that. We realized very quickly that most people aren't thinking holistically about their finances when we say, where would you put $1,000?
Right.
So
they just want to know, okay, I got $1,000. What stock do I put it in so I can make 1,000%?
before we get to that, we want to cover a few basic steps that you need to take before you invest in not just $1,000 into this month right now, but what you should do with the $1,000 every single time you get some extra money, because you need to go through these steps to be healthy financially. Right. So step one, have an emergency fund. And we're not talking about having it equal everything else, just separate specifically for emergencies. If your car breaks down, you need some way to fix that car. And why would you do that? Well, if you take the $1,000 and let's say you put it into a stock and your car breaks down next week, well, now you have to take the $1,000 out of the stock to go fix the car. Right. And most times when you buy a stock, there are fees and transaction fees, or if you do a CD or a bond or an index fund. So you're going to pay that and you're going to lose a little bit of money because the company hasn't even been held for less than a week right. at that point. So you're going to lose some money out of the base. If you don't have an emergency fund, you need an emergency fund. That's step one.
Now, when we say emergency fund, is there a dollar amount you're putting on that?
Well, it depends on your car. I mean, if you drive a Lamborghini, $1,000 is probably not going to fix your brakes.
No, that'll pay for maybe a headlight. Not even.
Not even.
You're going to get like the paint for the
touch-up paint.
The touch-up paint. Like a little bottle.
So you're saying it's kind of relative to your situation.
Yep. I would take the average expense that you have for your car and say, hey, it costs me $500 to do a brake job, or if I got an oil change on top of that, just take that every couple months, what you would normally spend, and put that as your emergency fund. Now, you need enough money if the tire pops to replace all four of them.
Right.
And for most cars, that's $150 to $250, somewhere in that range. So in that case, you're going to need all $1,000.
Yeah.
And that's most cars.
You know, if you get sick and you have an extended hospital stay and insurance, you got to pay the $1,000 deductible, whatever it is.
God, that gets you in the door. That doesn't get you like inside the room even.
Well, if it's like just an emergency room visit, you know.
Anything in what Brian's covering, the deductible in that case. I would have that as the emergency fund for the deductible, because that should cover a medical expense, maybe a car repair here and there. But if you don't have insurance, then that's a whole different conversation. You should have insurance, but that's outside of that. There is a deductible for your car, right. There's a deductible for your medical expenses, and if it's just regular maintenance on your car, you can't really say, I mean, you could use it for that, but then you have to replenish it when it runs out.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, so the principle here is have it for like the core things, like your vehicle. Like if you can't get to work, that's a problem, right?
Yep.
Or emergency medical expense. Is that what I'm understanding? I'm understanding this correctly?
Yeah, and there's a couple ways that you can fund that too. You can get like a FSA account or an HSA account inside of your insurance plan, depending upon what plan you have. And that really helps too, because that's all tax-free. So there's a couple things that you can do as far as like medical expenses go. But outside of that, things happen. Like even if you rent, things happen where hey, my computer broke or something happened to my furniture and I need to replace this thing. So if you drive a car, for most people, it's automotive.
Yeah, it's the big expense.
Yeah, that's their car where it's like, oh crap, I didn't expect to have to fix the axles or something this week because it went bad or whatever.
That's generally the thing that you have to fix, because you have to get to work to make the money so you can do all these things. If your computer breaks and you don't use it for work, you could go without that for a while.
I would die.
Gotcha. So we've got this core kind of emergency fund thing going on here. What's next?
Step 2.
This is the treadmill.
Yes.
This is the treadmill. This is when Brian and I have people ask us about like what you're asking us now with investments and how do we do this. They end up on this cycle where every month they get money coming in, and then they have all these bills, and all of the money comes out, and it's just this treadmill where they just keep cycling the same thing over and over every month, and they never really get ahead. So step 2, if you are on a treadmill where you end up with a big fat 0 at the end of the month every month, we need to fix the treadmill. So step 2 is to get 6 months of expenses in the bank. Now this is going to cover something like a job loss. This is separate from your emergency fund. So you need 6 months of expenses and that. Now we can get into the fact that if you're like most people and you get to month 3 and Christmas comes up, or hey, this new game came out and I wanted to buy this game or whatever, then that's a whole different conversation. So you need some discipline to this. But if you get to 6 months of expenses, $1,000 can be between that. Now that's not 6 months of income, that's 6 months of expenses. Right. So all of your expenses. If you don't have a washer and dryer at your house, you go to the laundromat. It's laundromat expenses. It's your cell phone bill. It's your heating bill. It's your food bill. It's your car payment. If you got a car payment, it's all those things.
Right. And to get that, it's really step 2.1 or 2A.
2A
is you have to get a budget so that you know what all your expenses are. Because most people, they sign up for subscriptions here and there, and they don't really know what's coming out of their checking account. They just know that this number goes in from their income, this number goes out at the end of the month. And what the heck is in there, I don't know.
So how do you know to listen to Brian about finance? Because he uses numbers and letters in his spreadsheets.
Darn toot I do.
So we've got 6 months of expenses, and it makes sense that we'd need to have in place a like tracking, like a budget, so you actually know what that number is. Okay, so we've got that. Then what's the next step?
Next step is the debt, because one thing that you're going to find out when you're putting together 6 months of expenses is that some of those expenses for most people have payments. And usually that's a debt on a car, debt on a credit card, debt on a student loan, debt on house, debt in general.
Yep. If you're making a monthly payment, that's debt.
Yep. And why do we say that? So if you have a stock, and let's say you bought one of our monthly stocks, and usually the dividend checks is between 2 and 5% of the equity value. Get into that later. That's boring stuff. But if you have a dividend check coming in for 5%, you've got a credit card over here that's 20%. Because I looked at those cards, they're expensive.
Yeah, 26, 29%.
That's crazy. What are you doing, people? Do not have credit cards. If you have them, pay them off next month, and you can build credit, which is good. But do not have just credit card debt sitting there, because if you buy the stock for 5% and you have a credit card for 26% already, out of the gate, you are down 21% on that $1,000. So if you have debt, we want to pay off the high interest debt first. That's the next step. Make sure you take care of that first, because if you don't do that, all the money you can make in the world on the stocks isn't going to help you, because you're paying it just to Visa or MasterCard or your bank or whoever owns the debt.
Right. There's a couple of different ways you could do that. There's a snowball debt payment method. There's the avalanche debt payment method. Either one works. So you could pick the one that works for you and that you understand the best, and kill all your debt. That, whether or not you invest, that's a great thing that you should do anyway.
You could do it like me and live in a van down by the river for 15 years and have no debt.
Yeah, you didn't do that.
Well, I'd like to think.
No, you didn't.
All right, we got another step here.
All right. So we've got the debt eliminated. I feel like what we've been doing thus far has been kind of laying the groundwork for this next step, which is kind of the part where you say, all right, these things are all in place. What's next? And I feel like what's on many people's mind, I know it's certainly on my mind, is, well, what about investing then? Like, what do we do next?
And that's step 4. Once you get your house in order and your finances are set and you know what's coming in and out, where everything's going, you got it good and solid, your debt's gone.
But if it's a van down by the river.
And if it's a van down by the river, then you got no debt, right?
It's easy.
You got your van paid off, you got a river to wash in. Now you can invest. You still got that $1,000 now, you can invest. And if you're a beginning investor, then one of the easiest ways is an index fund or an ETF.
There's a reason for that. The reason why you want to do that is because people will say, oh, the market ebbs and flows. it doesn't just ebb and flow. It's like a roller coaster. You feel like you're gonna die on the way down.
It's an emotional roller coaster, especially if you're watching that every single day go up and down. And it's like, oh my God, I lost money. Ooh, I made money. It's like, stop looking at it.
Just take the $1,000. If you're new to stocks, you're new to investing, bonds pay an incredible rate right now. They pay 5%, so you can get a good bond, get a good index fund or an ETF that's very similar to an index fund, and just ride it out for a year or two.
Yeah.
Just so you can see what happens. Oftentimes, what the market does is not the same thing as what the business is doing.
Right.
Sometimes they coincide, sometimes they do not. And other times you'll see that the market anticipates what's going to happen in the business 6 months before it even happens. So it might not even happen the way that they think it will. So if you buy the index fund and you can sit on that for a little while, you can at least see what the emotional trading does and how well you can weather that. If you can't weather that, the next step may not be for you. But if you can weather it, you'll do quite well.
Right. Once you learn like a Vanguard fund or whatever, how it works and gets an understanding of how stocks kind of work, then you watch our channel.
Yeah.
Subscribe to us, and every month we make a purchase, and you just purchase what we purchase when we purchase it.
Vet us with your financial advisor first so that we can say, these guys don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, we are not your financial advisors. We're just two dudes on the internet.
We've done pretty well, but in this case, it's good to get more voices, more opinions, more insight into your personal finances, how that ties into you. But we do make a purchase every month, and that purchase is a dividend-paying stock in a portfolio that pays us passively. Now, these are not exciting companies compared to what most people will buy. However, because of that, they are very consistent. They will pay you monthly, and every single time you get that paycheck, you have to do nothing for it after the first time you invest. And that's an amazing way to make money. And think about that. Every time you go to work and you get yelled at about something, or you get stuck in traffic, or something doesn't go your way, the passive income will be there. And that's huge. It just takes time. And yes, we know it's not exciting, but it will be exciting for you as you build it up over time.
Just need a little patience.
Yep.
Let it grow.
Hang in there. And for that monthly purchase, check it out. Here it is.